Alright everyone, it's time for day 3 of NaNoWriMo. It's actually probably past time. I probably should have gotten done earlier, but there's always a bit of setup when you're doing more than just sitting down to write, like getting the stream ready and all. My goal today is 7,500 words. I believe I'm at 5,500 or so, and we'll get at least that far and then take a look at, I'll update my word count and then we'll take a look at some of the other folks. Most of them probably be where they stopped yesterday, but a few may have already updated. All right. So the novel, again, is Rise Again, a sci-fi novel by Jay Wilburn. We are about to begin chapter 4. So let me scroll on down. Finished up chapter 3 yesterday, so that's where I went a little over 5,000. Chapter titles are a little odd because of the type of story it is, but we'll work our way through. Okay, so new chapter, new viewpoint character. Okay. They don't test the compounds as much as they used to, but the separatists, I'll get that spelled right in a moment, denominations are getting, let me stay past tense, we're getting bolder by the day. Fanaticism has, okay, let me spell a few things right while I'm here. Separatist, fanaticism, thank you computer. Fanaticism has a way of energizing people. Okay. They don't test the compounds as much as they used to, but the separatist denominations were getting bolder by the day. Fanaticism has a way of energizing people. I'm Patrick Overhill, and I'm a private inquisitor for the Meadowwood compound. If you asked the Church of America bishops directly, they would not approve of people in my line of work. Unofficially, they leave us alone to do what the wealthy families in the compounds hire us to do. All right. Some of them live in the compounds themselves, turning a blind eye to the PIs like me. Okay. So in whatever place we were dealing with now, PIs are private inquisitors. Alright. I've mentioned all those sort of set pieces that I prepared for this chapter, so let's go to follow. It was a guy and a gal this time. Alright. Kind of looking at what chapters are coming up next. Alright, it was a gal and a guy this time. They were dressed like they were dressed poor. Not degenerate, but they certainly had no business around the compounds. I've also been at this long enough to tell when a person has something to hide. It is even easier to tell with a couple. It brings out, my notes are getting in my way. It brings out their nervous and anxious tendencies. Blasphemers are always anxious. I cannot hit the X key for some reason. Anxious and nervous. I don't personally care about anyone's beliefs. Let's not call it beliefs in this world. Let's call it doctrines. Alright, let me make this a new paragraph too. I don't personally care about anyone's doctrines. If you cornered me on it, I would pledge allegiance. Apparently today I'm going to spell everything using spell check. Alright. If you cornered me on it, I would pledge allegiance to the good whole COA, like any patriotic and reverent citizen would. And I'd mean it. When it comes to the day-to-day operations of being a private inquisitor, it is sometimes wiser to let a suspicious fellow, we used fellow in the last chapter when someone else was talking, so I need to make it a different, we need to let a suspicious guy, it is sometimes wiser to let a suspicious guy go on to be suspicious somewhere else. Other times, I need to know why a couple that so clearly does not belong on this side of town might be scoping out the perimeter walls of the compound under my charge. I left the gate and moved around behind the trees and high hedges to the corner. Now let's make it to one corner of the hexagon perimeter of meadow wood. The couple had stopped in the center of the access road to the west of us and the east of the Brookmeyer compound. This time of night, almost the witching hour. This time of night, almost the witching hour. This time of night, almost the witching hour. The road was deserted, as it should be. Some nights, bishops or executives might come home this late with valid papers. Usually, even they stayed over the night in their secure places of work and worship. If they worked this late already. Alright, moving right along. Alright. I did not have to look at this pair more than once to know they had no papers to be out past curfew. Tried to spell curfew with an E. Why am I even writing? I did not have to look at the pair more than once to know they had no papers to be out past curfew. As they spoke to one another, even with their nervous and anxious tones clear in their voices, they seemed to have no hesitation in arguing under the moonlight in the center of the road, like the whole place belonged to them, and not a dangerous blasphemer in the world could hurt them. That threw me a little. Not that they were unafraid. That threw me a little. Not that they were unafraid of criminal threats. Let's switch it around. Sacrilegious. Oh my lord, I'm not even spelling anything right today. Not even close, but the computer knew what it was. Not that they were unafraid of sacrilegious threats, but that they were unafraid of men like me who would be patrolling this area for people like them. Fanaticism was, if I misspell something enough times, you'd think I might spell it correctly by accident one time. Alright, fanaticism was making them bolder indeed. How long? She asked. They had been arguing about something for a while, it seemed. The man looked at his wrist. The man looked at his wrist. The man in need of a shave looked at his wrist. I assume at a watch, but he turned his arm so that he was looking at the inside of his forearm. That may be confusing, I know what I'm trying to say, but with what's been done before, this may be problematic. I assume at a watch, I assume checking a watch. Let me get this right. I assume checking a watch, but he turned his arm so that he was looking at the underside. Let's say, there we go. Underside of his forearm instead of over the top like most would wear a watch. Odd behaviors like that could tell a lot about a suspect before I ever had to approach them. Odder still, I did not see any watch. Soon. It should be soon. AV. That looks like Avenue, doesn't it? So I'm gonna have to do her name differently. Yeah, I can't do that. Let's do Avel. Avel, maybe. Or would he just call her full name? Aveline? Aveline? Let me have him do her full name, and then I'll have someone else use a nickname later. I could do two E's. Aveline? Aveline? Okay. Aveline. Odd name for an odd little girl. She leaned in as she responded to his vague answer. She did not lower her voice enough for me to lose it. We've been here 4 days, she said. It's never taken more than 3. It has a couple times, Aveline said. All right. It's coming a little slower today, but I think I'm putting together what I need to. All right. It has a couple times. Okay. No, not Aveline. Has a couple times, he said. What can we do to speed this up? I don't know. You've been doing this for... Okay, what can we do to speed it up? Aveline said. I want to get her name in there so it's clear the PI, Private Inquisitor, actually knows her name now. I don't know. You've been doing this for years before you dragged me into it. Trey. Why don't you know? He gave a sigh. I knew that sigh. It was universal to blasphemers and the righteous alike. Men gave that sigh when their women laid into them like this. I almost felt for him. Almost felt for old Trey, because now he knows his name. Alright. It could be dehydration or nutrition, could be the weather. Alright, it could be dehydration or nutrition, could be the weather. Trey tried to explain. It could be dehydration or nutrition, could be the weather. Trey tried to explain. It may be something to do with the energy fields in this world. I've never had it take more than 5 days, 5.5 tops. Don't want to be here that much longer. It's not safe, she told him. He sighed again. Now he just appeared weak to me, and I most definitely did not like him. I would be turning them both over to church officials as soon as I could. They would not venture out until daylight, no matter what I messaged them at this hour. So far, I had nothing concrete. I could detain them all night, no problem, other than my time and trying to keep from letting them hurt me. Aveline spoke again as she turned away from my hidden position. I'm just ready to go. We'll probably end up somewhere worse, but I don't like it here. Alright. We'll be leaving soon, Trey said. I'm sure of it. I can feel it recharging. I promise. Her head hung in a way that told me she did not believe this guy's promises. She felt put upon by him. She might not even like him. Alright, her head hung her head hung in a way that told me she did not believe this guy's promises. She felt put upon by him. She might not even like him. He had broken more promises than he'd kept, I bet. Alright. Let me add something here for character at the beginning. If I were a betting man, which I am not, but if I was, I'd wager he had let's make this a contraction too. He'd broken more promises than he'd kept. Alright. My interest wasn't in how he'd hurt her. I might be interested in how he dragged her along. It might matter later how he hurt her when it came time to leverage them against each other during the Inquisition. For now, what interested me was whatever Trey was trying to recharge. For now, what interested me was whatever Trey was trying to recharge. Was it a weapon? I wasn't. Let me make this a new paragraph. Okay. Alright. For now, what interested me was whatever Trey was trying to recharge. Was it a weapon? I wasn't positive on that, although my strong desire to go on living and walking would never allow me to dismiss that possibility. A bomb? This idea concerned me. I read Aveline as discouraged, but not suicidal. A bomb, this idea concerned me. I read Aveline as discouraged, but not suicidal. She might mean she's ready to go in the blasphemer bomber sense of the term. That wasn't my first guess, but it was my first concern. The walls of the compound were strong, but I wasn't hired to give people like this a chance to test them like that. Alright, I'm going to move up here. They moved down the center of the street. I followed along behind the hedges with my feet on the concrete footing of the wall, of the base of the wall, so that they would not hear me tracking. Let's have him use a different word. Hear me shadowing them. You know what? Let's get fancy. We'll say spiriting them. Make it a different voice then. Okay, give them a chance to test that. Fanatics were strange creatures from a species like humans who were already quite strange even when righteous. Alright. We should find shelter, she said as they walked down the center of the street in the wide open for anyone to see. He looked up at my walls on his right, and I stopped in place. He looked over, he twisted his head to look, let's say spy, to spy the Brook, I think I said Meyer, Brookmeyer walls in the distance. These places don't look all that welcoming to strangers. We may have to keep going a while. Trey said. The instant it's charged, she didn't, let me put her name down. Aveline didn't finish her sentence, but Trey nodded his agreement just the same. Didn't sound like bomb or weapon talk. If these two had a target either assigned or in mind, they did not behave. Okay, if these two had a target either assigned or in mind, they did not behave like a pair of fanatics on a mission. If they were wearing nicer clothes, I'd assume they were lost. A nice, pious couple with papers for a trip away. They could have gotten stalled and then made the mistake of wandering away from their vehicle in fear of sacrilege. I will never spell that correctly. Sacrilege in the night. But in that case, they would likely seek the gate of the nearest compound and cry sanctuary. Even if they were out past the indulgence of their papers, the punishments would be small penance. I will not spell any of these words correctly, but only you guys watching will know. Even if they were out past the indulgence of their papers, the punishments would be small penance and likely forgiven depending on their families and the size and histories of those families' tithes. These two had something to hide. I could tell by looking at them. These two had something to hide. I could tell by looking at them. a communication. Well, let me have him follow. I followed them along the wall until they turned up. What would a street name be in a place like this? Up Bishop Franklin Boulevard. Gave them a few seconds of lead time. Then I left the cover of the wall and followed at a fair distance using shadow and obstruction to my advantage with a couple that was hardly observant even at, let me do another comma, even at this hour. All right. A communication device made the most sense. That would mean more of their kind around. It would also mean that the larger group might have a mission, and these two, not their most adept followers, had gotten separated along the way. I did not fully discount the possibility of a weapon or an explosive device, but now I was interested in their possible rendezvous. Oh. Rendezvous. Okay, I would have never spelled that right if the computer didn't do it for me. Alright, I did not fully discount the possibility of a weapon or an explosive device, but now I was interested in their possible rendezvous. Alright. Taking the two of them would be fine and end my night sooner. The problem was that I could tell this couple was a small prize. My sin of impatience might cost lives if a larger cell of blasphemers were allowed to go undetected. So I followed them for miles. As they turned the next corner in the midst of shops shuttered over with accordion doors pulled down and locked. As they turned the next corner in the midst of the shops, shuttered over with accordion doors pulled down and locked, I took the moment to message the other guards at the compound to let them know where I was and to be vigilant in the meantime. I wonder if they wonder whatever happened to me. Okay, getting close to the end of this chapter, I think. As I turned the corner, I spied the shooters on the roof of the shopping center. They tracked the couple with the bores of their weapons. I would not lose any sleep over Evelyn and Trey taking bullets that night. But I needed to follow them. No, let me not say needed. I'll say I wanted to follow them through to their eventual meetup, and I didn't need the blue light of a laser sight alerting them. I lifted my cross high enough to catch the moonlight and braced myself as the weapons swung on me. They lowered them in a hurry. I signaled that we were good, and I signaled that things were righteous between us. I signaled that things were righteous between us, and that this pair was mine. They signaled back understanding and apology. I believe they thought I was official Church of America, but there was no point in clarifying. I got what I wanted and followed the couple who owed me their lives. Beyond the small business district, we got into the derelict. That's probably not close enough for it. No, close enough for the computer to know. We got into the derelict neighborhoods. It was abandoned houses and squatters trying to hide from their own kind as well as mine. Okay. I thought for sure that we had finally found their piece of the world. This was more their place. I don't want to be here, she said. This is trouble. This is how we get hurt. Let's go back where it's nicer. Odd. Now I didn't know where they belonged. Some people don't belong anywhere, and I have found that usually that's their own fault. Trey started up a narrow pass between two buildings that smelled of rot and worse. Aveline sighed this time. I recognized it because I myself had made more than a couple women sigh like that too. This is where I made my mistake. I did not lead enough. As soon as Evelyn followed Trey into the stinking shadows of this unholy place, I crossed the street. Before I could plant myself in a new place of cover, the two of them walked right back out in front of me as I stood exposed in the middle of the street. The two of them walked right back out in front of me as I stood exposed in the middle of the street, looking as stupid as they had when this encounter began, in a nicer and a much nicer part of town. We stared each other down until I pulled my own weapon. Unlike whatever device they carried, mine was fully charged. I might go back and change the guards' weapons to maybe lasers or something so that it's different from a bullet, but I'm not going to worry about that detail right now. Alright, unlike whatever device they carried, mine was fully charged. I expected them to run. I wouldn't have been surprised if they split in two different directions. If you asked me in that moment, I'm not sure if I planned to shoot one and chase the other. That's not normally my style, but it was late and we were in a bad place. I probably would have let... Okay, let's do this. I probably would have let whoever ran down that wretched pass go, and I would have settled on tackling whoever ran along the street. I wanted her, though. It wasn't any personal reason. Wasn't any personal reason. From watching them, I read her as the least committed to whatever they were mixed up in. He seemed more intent on winning her over than the other way around. Alright, maybe coming to a stopping point for today. He seemed more intent on winning her over than the other way around. I thought she was more likely to turn early in an inquisition, more likely to turn against her friends early in an inquisition. Let's make it congregation. Her congregation early in an inquisition. To my surprise, they stood docile and stared back at me. For some odd reason, Trey lifted his hands in the air like he was trying to cast a spell on me. Fanatics are so very, very odd. I did fear for a moment as I wondered about the nature of his weapon or explosive. I was still betting on a communicator. Put your hands down, I said. What's wrong with you? He put his hands down, but did not answer. We are not going to harm you, she said. I was the one with the weapon. I was the one with the weapon. What was she trying to reassure me for? Evelyn, Trey, I think we need to talk about what you're doing out here tonight. what you think. I enjoyed the look of shock on their faces. I didn't want to give away all my advantage, but I did enjoy giving them a hint that I already knew their secrets. We're not what, Trey? I asked. We're not looking for trouble. He finished. No, that's good, Trey. I certainly don't want trouble, no more than you've already caused me. We're lost, Evelyn said. Very well. Is there someone I can call for you? They exchanged a look that told me far more than they thought. It's not quite that simple, she explained. What do you do when you're not wandering around after curfew? I'm a ward angel, she said. I had never heard of that denomination. If they were part of a cult, this night was going to get worse before better. Alright, I think I can finish up this chapter. So I'm starting fresh tomorrow, not bringing everybody back in the middle of something. Okay. I had never heard of that denomination. If they were part of a cult, this night was going to get worse before better. Nurse Trey said, with the hint of frustration that told me he'd corrected her on this before. Nurse, she repeated, as if that erased her blunder. Where in the world were nurses called ward angels? Where are you from, Adeline? I think I can get you back there better than Trey can. I saw hurt in his eyes, as I expected. Her eyes were more complex, and not just because they were beautiful, although that was probably part of it. I'd have to admit. She seemed... What would be good here? Because she can't get back to her world. He can't take her there. So this dig's kind of deep. She seemed pained on a much deeper level. I'd seen victims rescued from trafficker cults before, but this look was more existential than the empty eyes of those victims. She said very low, "I wish you could. I really do." Why don't you and I step aside to talk while our friend Trey waits here? Why don't you and I step aside to talk while our friend Trey waits here and makes no threatening moves in the meantime? She looked at him with wide eyes, like many abused people do. He met her with a similar gaze. I did not read anger in it. No betrayal even, but great fear. He feared losing her. He feared being alone in this world. It's charged, he said. She looked at me again and took a step closer to him. I wasn't thinking communicator anymore as I trained my weapon on Trey and took a half step back. Don't move your hands or body, Trey, or I will not stop until you're dead. Alright, we're close to the end of a chapter, so I'm going to go ahead and finish up this chapter and then I can jump into the next one. Put down the next chapter name, chapter title. Finishing a chapter a day is actually pretty good, even though it may take me over my word goal, which is not a bad thing, of course. It gives me a fresh start each day. Don't move your hands or body, Trey, or I will not stop until you're dead. Don't, she said. He's too close. I would have been happy to be farther away in that moment, but things had escalated into a real standoff. His hands moved behind his back, and I aimed on his head. No, Trey. She charged me. I should have anticipated that, but I did not that night. I ended up firing high and taking out the remaining glass in the second floor windows of 3 structures. Screaming rose from... I ended up firing high, and let's say the energy bolt took out. Okay. Screaming rose from one building. Another caught on fire. I stumbled back a few steps but did not fall. She disengaged me and ran to Trey's side. They still stood in the open. I raised my grip to fire again as Trey's arms glowed. At that time, I thought I must have hit him anyway, and he was on fire too. That's the only reason I never made a second shot. Everything blurred around me. I interpreted that as some sort of sonic weapon. I'd heard of them, but never saw one in use. My weapon flew from my hands, but like Aveline had said, I was still too close, so I fell through the rip in the universe with the two of them. Alright, so we finished a chapter, that's good. Chapter 5, I'm going to go ahead and put the chapter title down. Chapter 5, Epoch 5, Atom 2, Cuban 6. Okay. So that is the next chapter title. Alright, so we are at 8,288 words. Let's take a look at Nano for a moment. And I'll also, as I update my own word counts, I'm going to look at some of my other author friends and see what they've done. Again, I've gotten their permission before I did any of that. I'm currently at 5554, so I need to update that to 8. Let me look at the. Need to update that to 8288. I got credit for a double update yesterday because I put in the wrong number and then had to fix it. So we'll try to keep it honest today. All right, so we're doing total words 8828. And we've passed our 7,500 goal. I'm staying about 600 or 700 words ahead of pace, but probably still averaging about 2,500 a day now, not counting one of the days I got ahead. So we update my progress. I got a streak of 3 days going, and earned a couple badges. Once I edit it and load it up on YouTube, I'll save that as well. Let's take a look at what some other authors are doing. So again, I'm not showing all my buddies, but the ones who the ones who gave me permission. And if you look back at a couple of the other videos, there there's the updates there. I kind of look at some of their books on Amazon and things of that nature too, so you can kind of go back and see what some of these authors have written. Jessica McHugh is at 7,200. I believe that was her yesterday's goal, so she hasn't posted for today. She actually, again, you can see some of the books that she's written out there, and we've looked at them on Amazon in a previous video. But she writes longhand, and the way she calculates word count, like later she'll type everything up. The way she calculates word count is she'll count a few pages, get kind of an average for the piece that she's working on, and then estimate her word count as she goes up. And then of course she edits on paper and then types up the finished work, and I think maybe edits again from the computer. I'm not sure, but she has a process that takes her from longhand to finished work, and she writes some beautiful stuff. Poetry, short stories, novels, very unique voice. You can't be very unique. She has a unique voice and writes some excellent stuff. So she's going along great. Let's look at Armand Rosamalia. He writes crime fiction and a number of other things. I don't think he's updated today. He's at 8,237. He's updated once today. I don't think he's done, though. I think he's going to keep going, because he was pretty close to that yesterday, if I remember correctly, and writes multiple times in the day. So I think he's going to be updating more than once. So The Devil's School is the name of the novel, or the working title of the novel he's working on right now. All right, let's see who else is beating me at NaNoWriMo. John Quick has given me permission to look at his as well. So he's writing a horror supernatural novel called Homecoming. He's at 10,717 words, and I know that's from yesterday. So on day 2, he's past 10,000. Looks like maybe he's updated once. But I think yesterday he was writing close to midnight, so I think some of that may have crossed over the line on midnight. So I don't know if you count that as a day 1, day 2 kind of thing, but I know for a fact he's going to write more today. Already passed his 10,000 mark, so he is notorious for doing quite well with the word counts as he goes. Let's see who else we can scope out here. Chuck Buda is the author of a number of great novels, and he's working on the it's the Son of Earp series, and it's supernatural meets the Wild West. The last one that came out was Desert Fangs. I've read all of them. Corral of Blood is the next one. He's at 2388. Now, I believe that's where he was sort of day 1 in his writing, so I don't think he's updated. I believe he wrote yesterday and will probably write again today, but I don't think he's updated yet. I'm definitely going to encourage him to keep going. He and Armand Rosamalia are part of the Mondo Method podcast. It helps authors, and Chuck Buda has kind of shared his struggles with NaNoWriMo. I honestly, speaking for myself, it doesn't line up well with my own style because I don't like tracking word counts. I set word minimums for myself each day that'll kind of get me done with something on time, and often I'll go over those minimums, but I don't track the words normally. So this is out of my wheelhouse a little bit with how I normally write now. Chuck kind of has some similar struggles where kind of having the pressure of that 50,000 word deadline kind of weighs on him. The only reason he does NaNoWriMo is part of the podcast to be able to encourage other writers as they make their goals. And so even though he struggles a little bit to be successful quote unquote, with NaNoWriMo, he's still brave enough to participate and kind of show how he goes along. So I really want to encourage Chuck to keep going, to be able to do well, partly because I love those books and I really want to see the next one done, but also because I do want him to feel successful. Let's check out a couple other friends. There's some great authors on here. I want to get their permission to show their work. J.C. Walsh is writing the second book in his series. He wrote Death Highway 1, which again was a great first novel. He's writing the second one. He does a lot of cosmic horror. He's newer to writing. He's newer to publishing, I should say. Most folks who get into writing have probably been writing in one form or another for most of their lives, but fairly new to publishing. So he's working on Death Highway 2. I believe he's put together a short story collection. Not sure if that's been released yet. And is kind of working on some other things too. So wishing him luck. I don't believe he's updated today. So that's where he was yesterday. He tends to write during lunch break, and then definitely during NaNoWriMo he pushes himself to do a little writing at night whenever he gets home as well. So very proud of him and encouraging him to keep going. We got a couple other folks that'll let us look at their progress as we go along. Yeah, we'll look at 2 more. I want to get some more folks' permission, but some of them I don't know quite as well, so I'm not pushing very hard to get them to let me look at their stuff. And then some of them are newer writers and not quite as public yet, so I'm not sure if that's too much pressure for them. Most of them think it's crazy that I'm sharing or writing live online, because that's a very alien concept. But they're enjoying some of the videos. Usually I'll cut a video of the whole thing, this whole stream that I'll edit for YouTube, and then I'll cut this section that's the word count check, and a lot of folks will go back and look at that if they don't want to see the whole video. All right, Alex from Iowa. He is doing the Iowa Creature Feature. He's at 5,415, so doing very well. And he's already updated for day 3. If you do the 167, then he's about on track then, I believe. So 3, 5, 1. Yeah, he should be over. He should be over the if you did the 1667 pace that would take you out for 30 days. He's ahead of that, and he may not be done writing today. I think he's probably pushing himself to do a little bit more, but he's oops, wrong one. He's doing very well. All right, so let's take a look at one more author. Tim Meyer is a very accomplished author, and he is blowing it away as well. I've usually had a reputation of writing quickly for Nano, but with streaming I've cut it back a little bit. So he's doing Pteranodon Canyon. He's done a lot of great monster books, especially for Severed Press, and so anything you pick up from Tim Meyer is good. He's done a number of other very interesting horror novels that I just love, and we've looked at a few of those in a previous stream. But he's already at 12,600, and he's updated for today. I don't know if he's done writing today, but he's already updated, and obviously he is blowing it out of the water, already well past the 10,000 word mark. So very proud of all these folks and the great work they're doing. I'm excited for what they're doing, because as an author I'm their friend and we're peers, but I'm also a fan of what they do. I like the books they write. So it's there's a lot of folks that'll bang out a NaNoWriMo novel and it's kind of in rough shape, but these folks, they put together really great stories and great books, and I know they're going to edit well. In many cases these are books they would have been writing anyway. So just so very excited to see what they are doing, because I'm looking forward to reading it as well. So again, we've made our goal for today. I hope anybody who's watching who's also doing Nano is doing well also. Maybe seeing other folks kind of struggling along or having fun with the writing will encourage others to do well on their goals as well.